It was a crisp Monday morning when Marcus Cole stepped through the glass doors of Liberty Bank's flagship branch in downtown Atlanta. His tailored charcoal grey suit clung perfectly to his tall frame. Not flashy, just precise. Clean lines, Italian fabric, the kind of look that quietly demanded respect. He wasn't here for a photo shoot or a press event. He wasn't here to give a speech or check on some quarterly numbers. No security entourage, no flashy entrance. Just him. And yet within 15 seconds of entering the bank that he owned, 2 security guards stepped in front of him like he had wandered into somewhere he didn't belong. "Sir," one of them said, holding out a hand with that practiced politeness that barely hid the suspicion in his voice. "Can I help you?" Marcus raised an eyebrow just a little. "I think I've got it." "Just here to make a transaction." The guard looked him over from head to toe, not rudely but not exactly with warmth either. Marcus could almost hear the silent checklist running through the man's head. Black, tall, no name badge, not on. "Our list. What kind of transaction?" the guard asked. Marcus chuckled, trying not to let the tension pinch his voice. "The kind where you give me access to my own money." The second guard, younger and maybe new, looked visibly uncomfortable. "Do you have an appointment with someone?" Marcus paused. This was a test and not the first of its kind. He could pull out his ID right now. He could drop his title like a sledgehammer and watch everyone around him scramble. But something in him didn't want to end it just yet. "No appointment," he said calmly. "I thought I'd just stop by. I'm curious what kind of welcome a new client would get these days." The guards looked at each other. One of them pulled out a radio. "I'm going to call the branch manager, sir. Just give us a second." Marcus walked past them, slowly, letting his eyes scan the space. The interior looked as sharp as the renderings from the design phase. High ceilings, natural wood accents, digital displays looping stories about financial empowerment and community. Wealth building. Everything he'd envisioned when he started Liberty Bank 5 years ago. Everything they told him wouldn't work, and yet here it stood, successful, profitable, trusted. But as he watched a white couple walk straight to the counter with zero interruption, while a young black man in sneakers was being quietly followed by a floor associate, a familiar chill snuck up his spine. They don't recognize me. And worse, they don't recognize what this place is supposed to mean. Just then, a petite woman with straightened blonde hair and a crisp blue blazer approached. Her badge read, "Jessica R., Branch Manager." She looked at Marcus like she was trying to remember if she'd seen him on a poster or in a scam alert. "Hi there," she said, smiling tight. "I understand there's some confusion." "Not confusion," Marcus said, locking eyes with her. "Just a visit. I'd like to speak with whoever's in charge here." She glanced at the guards, then back at him. "You're speaking to her? Is there an issue with your account?" "That depends," Marcus said. "Do you treat all potential clients like this?" Her smile faltered, but only for a second. "We have protocols in place, sir, for everyone's safety. I hope you understand." "I do," Marcus said, his voice quiet but firm. "I understand exactly what's going on here." A beat of silence. Jessica straightened up. "May I have your full name so I can pull up your information?" Marcus looked at her for a long second. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about every kid who'd walked into a place like this and been told they didn't belong. Every entrepreneur who'd been rejected before they could finish their pitch. Every community left out of protocols like these. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a single card. Black, minimal, just his name embossed in silver. Marcus A. Cole, founder and CEO, Liberty Bank Holdings. Jessica took it with hesitant fingers, read it once, then again. Her face paled. One of the guards stepped back. I didn't realize." "Please, I know," Marcus said. "That's the problem." A hush fell over the nearby floor. One of the tellers had stopped typing. A couple of customers were watching now, eyes wide. Marcus didn't raise his voice, didn't make a scene. He simply stood there, a storm of calm. He leaned forward just a bit and said, "You don't recognize your own CEO. You don't recognize the man who wrote the diversity and inclusion policy you're supposed to be following. So let me ask you, there's Jessica. Who exactly is this bank for?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Marcus gave her a nod. Not rude, not smug. Just final. We'll be talking again soon." And just like that, he turned and walked out the door, leaving. A silence that felt like judgment itself. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The first time Marcus Cole got thrown out of somewhere, he technically belonged. He was 10 years old. It was a public library in the west side of Detroit. Rain tapping against the windows, a torn copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad in his lap. He wasn't supposed to be reading that kind of book. At least, not according to the security guard who told him he looked out of place. The book wasn't even his. He found it in the take one, leave one bin and had been devouring it like it held the secrets of a world that made sense. His mom, Deborah, worked 2 jobs, nurse's aide by day, gas station cashier by night. She didn't have time to fight the system, so she fought for him instead in all the ways she knew how. Clean clothes, hot meals when she could afford them, and a fierce, if exhausted, love. Marcus didn't grow up with much. Their 1-bedroom apartment had peeling linoleum and a heating unit that sounded like a dying raccoon. But it had something else too, grit. Every day, Marcus watched his mother come home with aching feet, bags under her eyes, and still find time to sit on the couch and listen to his stories about whatever he'd read that day. "You got something in that brain of yours," she'd say. "Don't let nobody talk you out of it." But the world did try to talk him out of it, repeatedly. His high school guidance counselor suggested he aim realistic when Marcus said he wanted to go into finance. A friend's dad told him he was too smooth to be sitting at a desk, like that was a compliment. His own uncle laughed and said, "What, you think you're going to be the next Obama or something?" But there was one person who didn't laugh. Mr. Willis owned the pawn shop down the street from Marcus's building. Tall, dark-skinned, always dressed like it was Sunday, even on a Tuesday afternoon. Most people went in there to sell old guitars or pick up second-hand TVs. Marcus went in for conversation. "You keep showing up here like I got a job for you," Mr. Willis had said the 3rd time Marcus wandered in. "I'd take it if you did," Marcus replied. Mr. Willis squinted at him. "You any good at numbers?" Marcus nodded. "I can memorize the price tags in your whole store right now if you want." The next day, Marcus was sweeping floors and organizing shelves. But Mr. Willis wasn't interested in free labor. He was testing something. Each shift, he'd give Marcus a problem, figure out which items were losing value, how to price bundles, how to calculate profit margin on used electronics. "This here's not just a pawn shop," Willis would say. "It's a crash course in survival. If you can turn $10 into 15, you're not broke, you're a businessman." Marcus soaked it all up like gospel. By junior year of high school, he was working after school, running numbers, helping. Willis set up a spreadsheet system, his first taste of real business, and he loved it. It gave him something school never did, agency, a sense that maybe he could change the script. Then came the day Deborah collapsed at work. Overworked, undiagnosed, diabetes, stress probably. The hospital bills were hell and the city wasn't forgiving. Marcus was 17 when she passed. She left him one letter, short, written in shaky pen. "You were born with purpose. Don't ever apologize for walking like you know where you're going." Marcus didn't cry, not right away. He got up, went to work the next day, and started applying to colleges that same week. He got into Howard University, a historically black college in D.C., on a partial scholarship. He still had to hustle, bartending, tutoring, even flipping thrift, store clothes online. He became obsessed with economics and financial systems, not just how they worked, but how they didn't work for people like him. It wasn't about getting rich. It was about building access. Marcus graduated top of his class. He walked the stage in a borrowed gown, the tag still inside. That night, he stood in front of the campus fountain with his suitcase in one hand and a future waiting somewhere past the glow of the streetlights. He didn't know where he was going yet, but he walked like he did. Years later, standing outside, the bank he built with that same determination in his gut, Marcus remembered something Mr. Willis once told him. "You can own the building. You can put your name on every damn wall, but if the people inside forget who built it, you might as well still be sweeping floors." That quote hit harder now than it ever did, because he wasn't 10 anymore, getting pushed out of a library. He was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing financial institutions in the Southeast, and they still didn't see him, still didn't recognize him. The past wasn't behind him. It was always walking beside him, reminding him why he started, and that past it was about to meet the present head-on. Marcus Cole landed his first corporate internship at Vanguard Capital Group, one of the oldest and most prestigious investment firms on the East Coast. 100 floors up, clean white marble floors, glass-walled conference rooms, and zero room for mistakes or emotion. He'd made it through 3 rounds of interviews, killed it in the case study challenge, outperformed every other candidate in the aptitude test, but when he showed up on day 1, the receptionist looked up at him and said, "Deliveries go around back." He didn't flinch. He'd been mistaken. "For the help before, no deliveries," he said with a small smile. "Just your new intern." She blinked, then turned bright red. I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "It's all right," Marcus said, voice even. "You're not the first." And he knew she wouldn't be the last. From the beginning, Marcus understood that the corporate world wasn't built for people like him. There were unspoken dress codes, coded language in emails, passive-aggressive, jokes, forced smiles, invisible glass ceilings. His mentor, Travis Bennett, a black executive VP at the firm, and one of only 3 in the entire building, pulled him aside on his second week and said, "You're gonna have to work twice. It's hard to be seen as half as capable. You ready for that?" "I've been doing that my whole life," Marcus replied, and it was true, but knowing it didn't make it easier. He learned fast enough to make some people uncomfortable. He stayed late, took the grunt work others ignored, studied after hours, figured out how to read between the lines, how decisions really got made in back rooms over drinks or on the golf course, not in spreadsheets. Still, when promotion time came, he watched others get ahead. The Ivy League guy who once asked if Detroit had actual neighborhoods got a lead role on a portfolio project. The woman who called Marcus so articulate in a meeting, like it was a shock, got her own office. Marcus? He got thanked. Not promoted, not elevated, just thanked. Travis told him one night over drinks, "They're not going to hand you anything, Marcus. You either make your own lane or you die trying to run in theirs." Marcus nodded. But inside, something shifted. He didn't want to just survive their game. He wanted to build his own board. Then came the Daniels Project. It was a multi-million-dollar community redevelopment fund proposal, something that could have actually made a difference in black and brown neighborhoods. Marcus built the model, ran the numbers, presented it clean. The partners listened, nodded, and a week later, the project went live without his name on it. Another associate, white, mediocre, with 3 fewer years of experience, got the credit. And the bonus. Marcus brought it up to HR, politely, factually. A week later, he got written up for communication issues and creating a divisive atmosphere. That was the day Marcus knew he had to leave. He didn't quit right away. No, he played the long game. He quietly networked, saved every dollar, made notes on how the system worked and where it didn't. He watched banks and firms reject small business loan applications for black-owned ventures at 5 times the rate of others with identical credit profiles. He watched his own community be sold dreams of financial freedom while being charged overdraft fees they couldn't afford. He watched powerful people smile in public and exploit in private. And the more he saw, the clearer it became. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed, just not for people who looked like him. One night, sitting alone in his apartment, Marcus pulled out a blank notebook and wrote 5 words at the top of the first page: build a bank for us. He didn't know how yet, didn't know where the money would come from, or who would invest in a kid from Detroit with no rich uncle and no last name that opened doors. But he knew why. And sometimes, why was all you needed to get started. He began calling old professors, reaching out to Travis, digging into community, banking regulations. He pitched the idea of a digital-first community-focused bank with free financial education, no predatory fees, and deep partnerships with black-owned businesses. Most people laughed. A few said it was noble, but not viable. One venture capitalist told him, "There's no market for financial equity. People don't care about fairness, they care about returns." Marcus thanked him, then walked out and kept building. The first investor to believe in him was a retired civil rights lawyer named Angela Monroe, who said, "I've waited 40 years to hear someone say what you just said." The second was Reggie James, a former NFL player turned tech entrepreneur who told Marcus, "If you're going to build a financial revolution, I want in." From there, the list grew. Not fast, not easy, but steady. By the time Marcus turned 31, Liberty Bank had raised $2.7 million in community-backed seed funding, and the dream was no longer just ink in a notebook. It had an office, a team, and a mission that burned hotter every time someone told him it would fail. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for Liberty Bank felt like something out of a movie. Cameras flashed. Local news anchors hovered. A gospel choir sang on the steps of a repurposed warehouse that now held Marcus Cole's dream. The first black-owned, tech-forward community bank in Atlanta in over 30 years. Marcus stood at the podium, sunlight catching the pride in his eyes. His voice, when it rang out over the crowd, was full of fire and conviction. "We're not just opening a bank," he said. "We're opening a future." Cheers, applause, a standing ovation. But as his mother used to say, sunshine don't mean no rain ain't coming, and the storm came fast. Liberty's early days were a blend of beautiful chaos. The idea had caught fire. Local business owners, young professionals, families tired of big banks, all opened accounts. Marcus was on podcasts, panels, community radio, talking about banking equity, generational wealth, and what he called financial freedom in real time. But behind the scenes, the foundation was already cracking. For starters, the tech partner they'd hired to build the mobile app, Blockridge Solutions, a flashy startup out of Silicon Valley, was burning through budget and delivering half-functional updates weeks late. Every glitch felt like a betrayal of the people who believed in Liberty. Then came the capital reserves problem. Because Liberty wasn't backed by a legacy institution or billion-dollar hedge fund, they had to work with razor-thin margins. The regulations were brutal. Any dip in liquidity or reserves could bring down the whole operation. And when one of their community partners defaulted on a microloan program, something Marcus had personally approved, the FDIC came knocking. That's when Marcus realized something terrifying. Passion wasn't protection. Good intentions didn't cover negative cash flow, and even revolutions need accountants. But the worst blow? It didn't come from the government, or a coding failure, or some angry investor. It came from someone Marcus trusted like family, Jalen Burke, Liberty's co-founder, friend since undergrad, a smooth-talking strategist with a magnetic personality, had been secretly mismanaging Liberty's business development contracts. He'd been taking kickbacks from vendors and pushing sweetheart deals to friends with shell companies. Marcus found out in the worst possible way. A journalist from a financial watchdog blog emailed him at midnight with the subject line, "Care to comment on your co-founder's fraud?" Marcus thought it was a prank, until he saw the receipts, invoices, signatures, email chains, all of it traced back to Jalen. They met that night, 2 a.m., rooftop of Liberty's main building, where they used to stand and dream about legacy. Marcus didn't yell, didn't throw a punch. He just looked at Jalen, heartbreaking and voice low. "You were supposed to build this with me." Jalen shrugged, eyes tired. "I did. But this isn't a dream anymore, Marcus. It's a machine. You don't get ahead playing clean." "You think that's what this is?" "Getting ahead," Marcus said. "We were supposed to break the system, not become it." Jalen didn't respond, just walked away into the dark, leaving. Marcus alone with the weight of it all. The fallout was brutal. Blogs picked it up. Then the news, then the investors. Marcus held a press conference, apologized, took full responsibility. They lost 2 major partnerships and nearly 20% of their customer base in a week. Liberty was on life support. Everyone told Marcus to shut it down, start fresh, change the name, rebrand, but he refused. "If we quit now," he said in a board meeting, "then we're telling them they were right, that we can't run a bank, that we can't hold power without breaking it." He stood up, weary but unshaken. "We're not shutting down. We're going to fix this, brick by brick." He restructured the leadership team, brought in Lena Voss, a compliance expert with a reputation for being ruthless and incorruptible, cut ties with every vendor Jalen touched, and most importantly, Marcus started listening more. To his staff, to customers, to the communities Liberty promised to serve. It wasn't fast, and it sure as hell wasn't easy, but somehow Liberty held on. Weaker, scarred, but still standing. Marcus walked the bank. Late one night, empty halls echoing under his footsteps, he thought of his mother, of Mr. Willis, of Jalen and what they'd almost built. He paused outside the front window and stared at the words etched in gold, "Built by us, for us," and whispered to himself, "Not giving up, not now, not ever." At first, Marcus thought, the timing was just bad luck. The new funding round fell through. One of their largest community development partners pulled out with no warning. A scheduled interview on a major business podcast was cancelled last minute. Scheduling conflict, they said. But when the third local news feature on Liberty Bank was quietly replaced by a sponsored segment on a national bank's community outreach program, Marcus started to see it clearly. This wasn't bad timing. It was a message. Liberty Bank was no longer just a feel-good startup with good intentions and cool branding. It was making noise, gaining real traction. And worse, for the old guard, it was working. Marcus called a meeting in the war room, the team's name for the glass conference room overlooking downtown Atlanta. The mood was tense. The walls were covered in sticky notes, wireframe mock-ups, and printouts of KPIs. Half the team had been pulled from startups, non-profits, or black-owned businesses. Most of them had never worked at a traditional bank, and that was the point. "All right," Marcus said, pulling up a slide on the screen. "Let's call this what it is. The big boys are scared." He flipped through headlines. New black-owned. Bank challenges traditional lending structures. How Liberty Bank is disrupting community banking. Could Liberty spark a financial movement? "Scared?" said Dion, the lead software architect. "Then why aren't they coming at us directly?" "Because they don't have to," said Lena Voss, the compliance officer. "They know how to squeeze without leaving fingerprints." She slid a folder onto the table. Inside were screenshots, internal memos, and reports from their external PR firm. A quiet blacklisting effort. Certain financial journalists were being discouraged from covering Liberty. Advertising slots were being outbid. Targeted campaigns launched against Liberty's keyword searches. Even a suspicious audit order from a federal agency that typically ignored banks their size. "This is death by bureaucracy," Lena said. "And it's legal, mostly." Marcus sat back in his chair. Angry didn't begin to cover it. "They're trying to kill us slowly," he said. "Starve our visibility, drain our reputation, make us look like a failed, noble experiment, and move on." No one said anything for a moment. Then Tara, head of customer outreach, spoke up. "So what do we do?" Marcus stood. "We remind them who we are." The next week, Liberty Bank launched the Our Money Matters campaign. It wasn't just a hashtag, it was a movement. They shared video stories of real people, single mums starting businesses, seniors buying their first home, young men avoiding payday loan traps because Liberty gave them a real option. They bought digital billboard space in cities where they were being blocked from ad buys. They held pop-up financial literacy workshops in underserved neighborhoods. They built a podcast, a community blog, an online financial coaching tool that was 100% free, and it worked. The stories went viral. Celebrities started retweeting them. Influencers jumped on board. National publications that had once ignored Liberty suddenly came calling. Marcus did interviews not just as a CEO, but as a movement leader. But the higher they climbed, the harder the hits came. One afternoon, Marcus walked into his office to find Lena waiting with a letter in hand. "It's from the State Comptroller's office," she said. "They're launching an investigation into our community grant disbursements." "What?" Marcus blinked. "We haven't even started those yet." "Exactly," she said. "They're not investigating mistakes, they're trying to find leverage." Marcus took the letter, read it, crumpled it in his fist. "Bring it on," he said. Still, the pressure started to wear on the team. Late nights turned into all-nighters. Meetings got sharper. People were tired, stretched thin. Some investors were getting nervous again. Marcus tried to keep morale high, but he could feel it, the invisible weight on his back, growing heavier by the week. One night, after a long board meeting full of stone-faced risk analysts and whispered doubts, Marcus stood alone in his office, looking out over the city he was trying to serve. His phone buzzed, a text from Travis, his old mentor. "If they're coming for..." "Hugh, it means you're over the target. Stay sharp, don't lose the why." Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Then he looked at the mural on the wall behind his desk. 5 words painted bold and unmissable. Built by us, for us. The system wanted him quiet, wanted him tired, wanted him gone. But Marcus Cole didn't build Liberty Bank to play safe. He built it to last. The invitation came in a plain white envelope, hand-delivered by a courier wearing a navy blue blazer and mirrored sunglasses. No logo, no return address, just Marcus's name, typed in a clean serif font and a meeting time. Thursday, 10 a.m., the Lenox Room, Four Seasons Hotel. No further explanation. Marcus turned the envelope over in his hands. He didn't like games, but he knew when something smelled like power, and this did. Lena warned him not to go. "It's a trap," she said, "or a bribe. Either way, it's not going to be clean." "I know," Marcus replied, "but if the devil's knocking, I want to see his face." The Lenox Room was glass and leather, and quiet enough to hear the clink of a water glass 3 tables away, the kind of room where decisions were made that never showed up on paper. Marcus was 10 minutes early. At exactly 10 a.m., a man walked in. Late 50s, polished grey hair, Rolex peeking out from his cuff, the kind of suit that came with a country club membership and a name nobody questioned. He extended a hand. "Marcus Cole," he said with a smile. "Pleasure. I'm Robert Langston. I sit on the board of Triune Federal." Marcus didn't shake his hand. "Let's get to it," he said, motioning to the empty chair across from him. Langston's smile didn't budge. "Fair enough. Triune Federal was one of the top 5 banks in the country. Old money, deep ties, a reputation for appearing community-focused, while funding lobbyists to make sure nothing ever changed." Langston leaned back, relaxed. "You've built something. Impressive, Marcus. We've been watching Liberty for some time now, I'm aware. You've got heart, vision, community support, but you're bleeding cash. You're being squeezed by regulators, and you're still vulnerable to an internal run or a bad quarter." Marcus folded his arms. "Sounds like you've already read the pitch, so what's the deal?" Langston took a long sip of coffee before responding. "Triune is prepared to make a substantial equity investment in Liberty Bank. We'd absorb the liabilities, fold you into our community investment division, and give you a national platform. Real backing, real scale. You'd remain the face of Liberty, CEO, public voice, all of it. But you'd answer to a larger board." Marcus's jaw flexed. "You want to buy us out and sell me back to my own people with a corporate leash." Langston's eyes didn't blink. "We're offering you protection and permanence. Isn't that what you want? For Liberty to last?" Marcus leaned forward, voice low. "No. I want it to matter. I want it to stay ours." Langston offered a small shrug, as if Marcus were a child refusing medicine. "I understand. Truly I do. But you're not just running a movement. You're running a bank. And the rules don't change because your intentions are good. Maybe it's time the rules did." Langston tilted his head just slightly. "They won't. But you can adapt." He slid a folder across the table. Marcus didn't open. "Everything's in there," Langston said. "Funding, board structure, PR rollout. We make this move together and Liberty becomes a national name by next quarter." Marcus stared at the folder. One signature could solve a dozen problems. The funding gaps, the audit, the media silence. He'd have protection, influence, even a bigger spotlight. But at what cost? Control, integrity. The reason he started any of this in the first place. He pushed the folder back across the table. "You ever been denied a bank loan just because of your zip code, Mr. Langston?" Langston didn't answer. "You ever watched your mum cry over overdraft fees because her paycheck cleared 30 minutes late?" Still silence. "I'm not here for a seat at your table," Marcus said. "I'm building my own." Langston nodded slowly, like a chess player realizing his opponent just made a move he didn't expect. "A bold stand, Mr. Cole. I respect that." He stood up, buttoned his jacket. "But let's see how long you can stand when the game gets serious." As the door closed behind him, Marcus sat in the silence. Temptation, threat, everything wrapped in a handshake and a smile. He opened his phone and texted Lena. "Meeting's over. No deal. But war's coming." She replied one word. "Good." That night, Marcus walked into a Liberty community event and saw a line of kids learning how to open their first savings accounts. He watched an elder couple getting coached on retirement planning. A single mom smiling as she was approved for her first home loan. This wasn't just about money. It never had been. It was about ownership, power, legacy. Marcus didn't need a seat at anyone else's table because he was building a new table, one built on truth, trust, and fire. The video wasn't planned. It was grainy, shot on a phone, shaky as hell. Just a regular Tuesday afternoon in Atlanta. A customer, an elderly black woman named Miss Irma, had come into Liberty's downtown branch to cash a check. She didn't know she was about to become a symbol. The teller, Janelle, recognized her immediately. Miss Irma had opened her account at Liberty during its very first month. She always came in wearing the same red shawl, always brought peppermints for the staff. But that day she was struggling to walk. Arthritis, bad knees. She hadn't even made it fully through the door when Janelle dropped what she was doing and came around the counter to help. That's when the video started. Another customer had pulled out their phone, captured Janelle gently walking Miss Irma to a chair, offering water, sitting beside her and walking her through every step of her transaction, slowly, respectfully, with dignity. The video hit Twitter that night with the caption, "Never seen this kind of care at a bank before. This is what we need. Our money matters. Liberty Bank." By morning, 6 million views. By noon, 10.3 million. By the end of the week, Liberty Bank was on the front page of Time, Forbes, and CNN Business. Suddenly, Marcus's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. NBC, Bet, NPR. Trevor Noah wanted an interview. Viola Davis retweeted the video. Even Oprah's team reached out. And just like that, Liberty wasn't just a scrappy startup with a big heart. It was a movement with a microphone. Marcus called an emergency team meeting. Everyone crowded into the conference room, coffee in hand, eyes lit up. "We didn't pay for this attention," Lena said, "but we need to be ready for it." "Right," Marcus nodded. "Visibility is power, but it's also pressure. Every word we say now represents something bigger than us." Dion pulled up the analytics. "Our app downloads are up 300% since yesterday. Website traffic just crashed the server twice. People are listening. And watching," Tara added. "Looking for a reason to believe, or a reason to say we're fake." Marcus stood. "This is the moment we've been waiting for. We don't change who we are to fit the spotlight. We let the spotlight amplify who we are." He looked around. "The room. I know we're tired. I know this ride hasn't been smooth, but this right here, this is where legacy begins." That night, Marcus sat down for a live interview with Anderson Cooper. The set was sleek, lights bright, the studio air, conditioned down to the bone. But Marcus was calm, confident. Cooper leaned in, voice level. "Marcus, Liberty Bank has been called everything from a financial revolution to a risky social experiment. What do you call it?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I call it overdue," Cooper smirked. "Overdue?" "Yeah. Black and brown communities have been excluded from fair banking practices for generations. This isn't a handout, it's a correction." "And what's your goal?" Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Ownership, education, access. I want to make banking human again, where trust isn't bought, it's built." The interview aired that night. The next morning, Liberty's waiting list doubled. But not everyone was clapping. On a conservative business news show, a panel of analysts ripped Marcus apart. "This guy's turning banking into a charity. He's dangerous, trying to guilt the industry into changing. Social justice doesn't belong in finance." Even Triune Federal, Marcus's would-be buyer, released a statement questioning the sustainability of Liberty's model. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. Miss Irma did an interview on her own with a local paper. When they asked how she felt about being the face of a movement, she said, "Baby, I'm just happy my check cleared and somebody looked me in the eye while doing it." Behind the scenes, though, things got complicated. With the surge in visibility came pressure to scale. Fast. Investors started calling, asking why Liberty hadn't expanded into New York, LA, Houston. Strike while the iron is hot, they said, but Marcus hesitated. He knew growth was good. But fast growth without roots, that was how empires fell. We grow when we're ready, he told the board. Not when the hype says we should. Some nodded, some didn't. That week, Marcus sat in his office after hours, the city lights blinking through the windows. He opened a message from a high school student in Detroit, a kid who said he watched the video of Miss Irma and opened his first savings account that same day. I didn't know banking could look like that, the message read. I want to do what you do. Marcus smiled. He typed back, you will. Start by showing up. We'll build it together. It started small. A delayed email response here, an overlooked approval there, a missed compliance signature that led to a flagged transaction with regulators. At first, Marcus chalked it up to the team being overwhelmed. Growing pains. Everyone was working overtime. Mistakes happen, right? But Lena didn't think so. We've had 5 internal process failures in the last 2 weeks, she said, pacing in Marcus's office, and they all trace back to one person. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Who? Lena dropped a folder onto his desk. The name on the cover nearly made his stomach turn. Thomas Hale, Liberty's CFO. The steady hand. White, Harvard business, quiet, polished, smiled just enough but never too much. The kind of man investors liked, because he spoke their language and wore their suits. Marcus had brought him on 6 months ago to stabilize the bank's financials. I vouched for him, Marcus said, more to himself than to Lena. Yeah. Well, Lena said, arms crossed. You ever notice how he always forgets to CC you when he's emailing the board? The deeper they looked, the uglier it got. Thomas had been quietly undermining several of Liberty's community initiatives, labeling them non-essential spend in internal memos, rerouting funds without full approval, and even initiating back-channel conversations with 2 VC firms Marcus had already turned down. One of those firms, Triune's shadow subsidiary. You think he's trying to sell us out from the inside? Tara asked at the emergency leadership meeting. No, Lena said. He's trying to replace Marcus. The room went dead silent. Marcus didn't explode. He didn't raise his voice. He just sat there, quiet and still, letting the truth settle around him like cold fog. He had trusted Thomas, let him into the room, gave him power. And now? The man was slowly twisting the narrative, painting Marcus as passionate but reckless, himself as the mature leader Liberty needs for long-term sustainability. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was strategic, calculated. Thomas was playing the long game, and he was damn good at it. Marcus called him into the office the next morning. No press, no board members, just the 2 of them. Thomas walked in, cool as ever. Navy suit, blue tie, that same practiced smile. Marcus, he said, taking a seat like it was just another budget check-in. What's going on? Marcus stared at him. For a moment. Then, quietly, you trying to run a coup in my house? Thomas blinked just once, but his composure didn't break. I'm trying to protect Liberty, the version of it that survives. You mean the version where I'm not in the picture? Thomas leaned forward, hands clasped. Let's be honest, Marcus, you've done something incredible, but you're not scalable, you're emotional. You say no to deals that could triple our reach, and the board is getting nervous. You mean you made them nervous? I gave them clarity, Thomas said. You want Liberty to be more than a moment, then you have to step aside. Marcus smiled, not with his mouth, with his eyes. That slow Detroit-born smile that said, You think I didn't see this coming? You really thought you could push me out of something I built from nothing? He asked. Thomas straightened his tie. If it keeps Liberty alive, yes. Marcus stood, walked to the window, then he turned back and said, You think Liberty survives without me because you still believe this is about a product. It's not. It's about people. You can't quantify that in a spreadsheet. He paused. And neither can the board. The next day, Marcus called an emergency board meeting. He brought data. He brought testimonials. He brought truth. But most importantly, he brought Miss Irma. She showed up in her red shawl, sat down in front of 12 suits and said, "I've seen banks come and go, but I ain't never seen one where they know your name and look you in the eye. I trust Marcus, because he trusts us." When she was done, the room was quiet. One by one, board members shifted, some uncomfortable, some convicted, but all realizing something Thomas never would. Liberty was more than a brand. It was a belief. They voted. To 4. Thomas was out. Effective. Immediately. That night, Marcus stood on the roof of the Liberty Building, alone, wind sharp. Air clear. He thought about the knife in the handshake, the smile behind the sabotage, the cost of trusting the wrong man. Then he thought about the vote, the belief, and most of all, the people. He texted Lena. "He's gone. Let's rebuild." "Right this time," she replied. "Already started. The weight of the world doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, like the heat of a rising tide, until you find yourself gasping for air and realizing you're already swimming in it." For Marcus, the pressure was relentless. The board wanted results, the public demanded more, and Liberty's momentum wasn't slowing down. Now, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about scaling, about taking what was once a local movement and pushing it onto a national stage. Every decision felt like it could change everything. That morning, Marcus met with the leadership team in the now renovated Liberty headquarters. The walls were lined with the faces of customers, actual faces, not stock images. He'd made sure of that. This wasn't about a logo. It was about community. But as he stared around the room, he could feel the shift. Lena, Tara, Dion, they were all ready. But Marcus needed more than just loyalty now. He needed a new strategy, a new direction. "We're at a crossroads," Marcus said, his voice steady but firm. "The demand is there. The interest is overwhelming. But we can't just keep playing catch-up. If we want Liberty to survive in the long run, we need to think bigger, smarter." Lena raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" "We need to partner," he said, leaning forward. "I'm not talking about a merger or selling out. I'm talking about strategic alliances with other community-driven organizations. We can grow, expand nationally, but still keep our roots. We need to build infrastructure that connects not just cities but communities." Tara nodded. "What about funding? We've got investors knocking, but we can't go too big too fast. We'll lose control." "I'm not interested in losing control," Marcus said. "But we can't be afraid of growing either. It's about balance." The next few weeks were a blur. Conference calls, investor meetings, community outreach. Every day, Marcus found himself juggling the delicate line between staying true to Liberty's mission and answering the constant pressure to expand. It wasn't easy. One day, as Marcus sat in his office reviewing a proposal from a potential partner, his phone rang. It was Jason Blackwell, the head of operations at Triune Federal, the very same bank that had tried to buy Liberty earlier. "Marcus," Jason said, his tone smoother than any banker should sound, "I know we've had our differences, but after your recent success, I think we could help each other." Marcus sighed, already irritated. "Jason, we're not interested." "Not so fast," Jason said, his voice taking on a more persuasive edge. "We're not talking about buying you out anymore. We're talking about a partnership. Triune's resources could give Liberty the scale it needs to take this nationwide. You'd keep control. You'd keep your mission. We'd just give you the backing to make it happen." Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. He'd been down this road before. He knew the game. "You want to buy my values," Marcus said bluntly. "No, Marcus," Jason replied, his voice smooth like honey. "I want to help you protect them. Think about it. Together we could change the banking game for good. We could make Liberty the standard, not the exception." For a moment, Marcus didn't speak. He let the silence stretch between them. Jason Blackwell was good at this. Good. At convincing people to make choices that aligned with his bottom line, not theirs. Finally, Marcus said, "I'll think about it, but don't expect an answer anytime soon." In the weeks that followed, Marcus found himself surrounded by offers. Partnerships, acquisitions, sponsorships. Everyone wanted a piece of Liberty, and while the potential was undeniable, Marcus knew the stakes were higher than ever. He couldn't afford to lose what he had worked so hard for. He had to make sure that whatever decision he made, it wasn't just the right one for Liberty. It had to be the right one for the people who trusted him. Late one night, Marcus sat in his office staring out at the city skyline. His phone buzzed on the desk. A message from Lena. Board's getting impatient. They want to move forward with the national expansion plan. If we don't act soon, we might lose our shot. Marcus typed back quickly. We move on our terms. No shortcuts, no compromises. Lena's response was immediate. I know, I trust you, but the pressure is building. And that's when it hit him. The real pressure, not the investors, not the board, but the people who had followed him from the beginning. The community that had believed in Liberty when it was just an idea, a dream, in a small room with no capital. No backing, no voice. They were counting on him. The next day, Marcus made a bold decision. He would take the next step, but he wasn't going to compromise the integrity of Liberty for the sake of fast growth. He called a press conference. The world was watching. The eyes of investors, customers, and competitors were all trained on Liberty. He stood at the podium, facing the cameras, the weight of the decision pressing on his shoulders. Today I'm announcing that Liberty Bank will be expanding to new markets, but we will do so only by staying true to the mission that got us here. We will partner with other community-driven organizations, maintain our independence, and build infrastructure that serves people, not just profit. The press room was silent for a beat before questions came flying at him. What about the partnerships with bigger banks? One reporter asked. Marcus stood tall, his eyes unwavering. We don't need to sell our values to scale. We'll grow with integrity, and we'll bring the communities along with us. The next few days were a whirlwind. News outlets ran stories about Liberty's bold move. Investors raised eyebrows, some skeptical, some impressed. But one thing was clear. Marcus had made a stand. He wasn't just building a bank. He was building a movement, and no amount of pressure could change that. Liberty Bank was riding high, its name on the lips of every major outlet, its app downloaded millions of times, and Marcus celebrated as the CEO of a new financial revolution. But for every step forward, there's always someone pulling from the shadows, ready to make the climb more treacherous. It started with a series of anonymous tips. First, the allegations were small, questionable lending practices. Then it became more personal. Connections to unregulated investment schemes. Then the bombshell, insider trading at Liberty linked to Marcus's inner circle. None of it was true. Marcus knew it. But the problem wasn't the truth, it was the narrative. The media jumped on the stories. Skeptics, critics, those who saw Liberty as a threat to the status quo began pushing a different angle. And in a world where perception often outweighs reality, it didn't take long for the doubt to spread. It didn't help that Triune Federal, now facing its own struggles due to aggressive competition from Liberty, had quietly launched a smear campaign, a whisper campaign of their own through third-party consultants that painted Marcus as a man driven more by ego than by values. A few days after the first headlines dropped, Marcus sat in a meeting with his core team. Marcus, Lena said, her tone serious, we've got to address this, and fast. These rumors are hitting us from every angle, and we're starting to see a drop in new account sign-ups. People are worried. Marcus clenched his jaw. It was all too familiar. He'd seen it before, the tactics, the shadow games. They want us to play defense, Marcus said, running a hand through his hair. But we won't. We're going to stand firm. We're going to let the truth do the talking. Tara nodded. But the truth isn't going to clear our name overnight, Marcus. We need to show people that we're legitimate. We've got to be transparent now. I agree, Dion added. People are looking for accountability. We need to take the power away from them. Marcus thought for a moment. The media wasn't going to stop, and neither was Triune. The only thing left to do was confront it. Head on. No more distractions, he stood up. We release everything, the full story, we've nothing to hide. Transparency is our strength. We're not playing by their rules anymore. The following week, Marcus held a live press conference. He stood at the podium, facing the cameras and reporters, his hands steady despite the storm of questions he knew would come. I am here today to speak directly to you, the people who have trusted us with your money, your business, your lives. Marcus began, his voice calm yet commanding. He laid it all out, every accusation. He didn't dance around it. Instead, he addressed each one, providing evidence, documents, and full transparency. He showed how the allegations had been manipulated, how Tribune had used its influence to orchestrate a campaign designed to destabilize Liberty. But it wasn't just about the allegations. Marcus made it personal. "I've spent my life fighting for what's right," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And while I won't apologize for standing up for my community, I will apologize if I've let any of you feel uncertain about who we are or what we stand for." For a moment, the room was silent. The weight of Marcus's words hung in the air. The camera flashes were relentless, but it was clear that something was shifting. Then came the hardest part. One reporter, a seasoned investigative journalist, raised his hand. "Mr. Barnes, why didn't you speak out sooner? Why wait until—" The accusations were in full swing. Marcus paused. "Because the truth is not something you defend when it's under attack. The truth is something you live. And that's what we've been doing all along. We didn't get here by playing games. We got here by being true to our customers, by staying connected to our values." He looked directly into the camera. "We have nothing to hide. This is the truth." The media reaction was immediate and divided. Some outlets hailed him as a hero. They praised his openness and transparency, calling him a rare breed in an industry known for secrecy. Others, however, took a different angle. Fox News ran a segment calling Marcus reckless for airing Liberty's dirty laundry. "A dangerous approach," they said, "especially for a company that still hasn't proven it can handle such rapid expansion." But despite the mixed reactions, Marcus's decision had stopped the bleeding. The stories didn't stop, but they lost their bite. Liberty's transparency had created a shield. The truth, however painful, had given them a chance to reset. 2 days later, Marcus received a call. It was from Ellen Brooks, a prominent financial journalist with the Wall Street Journal. "I have to say, Marcus," she began, "I didn't expect you to take the direct route. Most CEOs would have hidden behind lawyers, but you didn't, and that's rare." "Appreciate that," Marcus said, leaning back in his chair, "but it's the only way I know how to lead. No shortcuts." Ellen chuckled. "I'll be honest, I didn't believe in Liberty when it first came on the scene. I thought it was too much of a cause and not enough of a business. But you've proven me wrong. I think you're going to be around for a long time. You just have to keep the momentum going." Marcus nodded. "I hear you. But here's the thing, Ellen. We're not about momentum. We're about something bigger. We're about change." The next few weeks weren't easy. The attacks continued, but so did Liberty's growth. Slowly, the accusations faded into the background as more people saw Marcus's decision to be transparent as an act of integrity. Then, one day, Marcus got fair surprise. Tribune Federal, after watching Liberty's handling of the media storm, announced a shift in its strategy. They would focus on community initiatives. They would adopt some of Liberty's core values. It was a quiet victory. They hadn't won the battle, but they had won the war. Liberty had proven that values could change the financial game. And in a world where profit was always the loudest voice, Marcus had shown that the quiet, steady drumbeat of integrity could carry just as much weight. As Marcus sat in his office that evening, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders, he knew that this battle wasn't over. But for the first time in weeks, he felt the future had been put back on track. The price of truth, it had been high, but the payoff was worth it. Marcus had never felt more alive, yet more exhausted in his life. It had been weeks since the dust settled from the scandal, and the public's perception of Liberty Bank had slowly begun to shift back in its favor. But while the media had moved on to the next big story, the aftermath still loomed large in Marcus's mind. The damage wasn't just about Liberty's reputation, it was about the very fabric of what they were trying to build. The momentum had been there, but the bank had come dangerously close to unraveling. If Marcus didn't act fast, they could lose everything. The stakes were higher than ever. That morning, Marcus gathered his team in the newly renovated Liberty headquarters. He looked around at the faces of Lena, Tara, Dion, and a few key members of the executive team. The room was quieter than usual, the weight of their collective responsibilities hanging in the air. We've survived the worst of the storm, Marcus began, his voice firm but tired. But surviving doesn't mean we've won. We've built something unique, something important. But if we want to move forward, we need to evolve. Lena spoke up first. You mean in terms of our mission? Because people still trust Liberty. That's what we've shown them over the past few months. We're about community and transparency. Marcus nodded, but his expression remained serious. That's true, Lena, but trust isn't enough anymore. We've shown we can weather a crisis, but now it's time to show we can build something that lasts. I want to expand Liberty in a way that stays true to our roots, while also challenging the status quo. Tara leaned forward. What's the plan, Marcus? Marcus paused for a moment. We're not going to just expand, we're going to disrupt the system. The financial system is outdated. We've already proven that by staying true to our principles. But now we need to show the world that Liberty can redefine banking, not just be another player in the game. Dion raised an eyebrow. What do you mean by redefine? Not just with new products or services, Marcus said. I'm talking about the way we connect people to money. We need to create a new ecosystem, one that empowers individuals, particularly in underserved communities. We're going to build a platform, a comprehensive financial tool that brings together banking, investing, education, and loans in one place. It'll be designed not just for the wealthy, but for everyone. Lena, who had always been a pragmatic voice, looked skeptical. That's ambitious, Marcus. We're talking about a complete shift in how we operate. Do we have the resources? We will find the resources, Marcus said, his voice filled with conviction. We've earned credibility. Now we need to make smart partnerships and bring in new investors who believe in what we're doing. We're going to show them that Liberty isn't just another bank. It's a movement, a revolution. The next few days were a blur of planning, meetings and calls with potential investors. The idea was bold. Some said it was risky, others said it was visionary. But Marcus believed it was the next step in making Liberty a true legacy. But the higher they aimed, the more enemies they made. It wasn't long before Marcus's decision to shake things up caught the attention of some very powerful people. One afternoon, he received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Victor Graham, a billionaire investor and owner of Graham Financial, one of the biggest banking conglomerates in the country. I've been watching you, Marcus. Victor's voice came through the line, calm and calculating. I'll be honest, I didn't think much of Liberty when it first appeared. But now I see potential. You've got something special going on. You've built a brand, a community. But I'm wondering, can you take this national, globally even, without making compromises? Marcus leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming on the desk. What do you mean by compromises, Victor? Let's not pretend, Victor said, a smile creeping into his voice. Every company hits a point where they have to make their choice. You want to grow Liberty, but what's the cost? You think you can keep all those values in play while chasing billions in revenue? I've seen what happens when people try to do both. It doesn't end well. I'm not interested. I am selling out, Victor, Marcus replied sharply. And Liberty is not for sale. If you want to be part of our journey, we'll do it on our terms. Victor laughed, a cold, knowing sound. I'm sure you think that. But there are forces bigger than you, Marcus. If you want to rise, you'll have to make deals with people who don't share your idealism. It's a tough world out there, and you'll find out soon enough that you can't always play by the rules. The conversation left Marcus uneasy. He knew there was truth in what Victor had said, but he refused to let fear dictate his decisions. They had come too far to turn back now. In the days that followed, Marcus and his team worked tirelessly to finalize the details of the new platform. They brought in top-tier developers, financial analysts, and legal experts, but the pressure was starting to get to everyone. It wasn't just the media anymore. There were now powerful entities watching Liberty's every move. The tipping point came one late evening when Marcus sat in his office reviewing the final proposal for the platform launch. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Tara. "We need to talk. Urgent." Marcus's heart sank. When Tara said something was urgent, it usually meant trouble. He dialed her number immediately. "What's going on?" Marcus asked. "It's about the investors. They're pulling back," Tara said, her voice tight. Some of the bigger ones are worried about your vision. They want us to scale quickly to move faster, less focus on community initiatives, more on profits. If we don't give them what they want, we're going to lose them. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. I'll fix it, just keep everyone focused. Later that night, Marcus called an emergency meeting with his leadership team. The air in the room was thick with tension. The stakes had never been higher. We have a choice to make, Marcus said, his voice steady. Do we compromise and chase the money, or do we stay true to our mission and fight for the people we promised to serve? There was a long pause as everyone exchanged glances. Finally, Lena spoke up. Marcus, we've always said we'd do this our way. We've been through hell to get here. We can't back down now. With renewed resolve, Marcus made his decision. He would stand firm, even if it meant losing some investors. Liberty would remain true to its mission. They wouldn't sell out. As he walked out of the room that night, Marcus looked out over the city skyline. He knew the road ahead was going to be even harder than the one they had just traveled. But for the first time in a long while, he felt the fire of determination burning brighter than ever. Liberty had survived the ashes. Now it was time to rise above them. Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the numbers flashing on his screen. The latest projections weren't good. After rejecting the demands of some of Liberty's biggest investors, the money they had hoped for wasn't coming. More than that, the promises made to their board and staff now seemed in jeopardy. The new platform they'd spent months developing? Still months away from launch. They needed capital, and fast, if they were going to hit their ambitious goals. The first blow came when Graham Financial, the largest investor Marcus had turned down, made a public announcement that shocked everyone. They were pulling out of any future investments in Liberty. That wasn't surprising, but what happened next was, Graham's withdrawal had created a ripple effect, and several other investors followed suit. They were calling it the Marcus effect, the fallout from a CEO who refused to compromise for money. The news hit the business world like a storm. By the time Marcus walked into Liberty's headquarters the next morning, the atmosphere was heavy. His team had been on edge for weeks, but now that tension had escalated to a new level. People whispered behind closed doors. Rumors spread like wildfire. The big question was, could Liberty survive without the funds they desperately needed? To launch the platform, Marcus walked into his office and found Lena already there, waiting for him with a grave expression on her face. "Morning," he said, trying to keep his tone upbeat despite the anxiety gnawing at him. "Marcus," Lena began, her voice low, "I don't know how to say this, but things are starting to look really bad. Our secondary investors are starting to panic. They're questioning our ability to pull this off without Graham's money. And frankly, I'm not sure they're wrong. If we don't find a solution fast, we could face serious liquidity issues." Marcus exhaled slowly. "I know, believe me, I know." The team gathered in the conference room later that morning. The tension was palpable as they went over the latest numbers. Tara, who had been relentlessly working the phones, looked up. At Marcus, her expression weary. "We've had some smaller investors pull out as well. They're saying they need more security before committing to anything else. And without that security, we're stuck in a holding pattern. We've got a couple of loans lined up, but they're not enough to cover the platform launch. The risk is too high." Marcus rubbed his temples. "What do we do now?" The room fell silent for a moment before Dion spoke up. "We could try to raise money another way. Crowdfunding, maybe?" "There's a lot of support for the vision we've got." Marcus looked at Dion, his mind racing. "Crowdfunding sounds good in theory, but we're talking about millions of dollars, not a few thousand. We need big capital, and fast." Lena raised, her hand slightly breaking the tension. "Marcus, there's a possibility we haven't explored yet. Private equity. We could bring in a strategic partner who shares our vision and is willing to take the long-term risk." Marcus gave her a skeptical look. "We've already rejected the big players. Why would anyone who shares our vision come in now?" Lena shrugged. "Because some of them might actually see the value in doing things differently. There are investors out there who understand what we're doing and want to be part of it for the long haul, not just the quick return." The idea of a strategic partner had its appeal, but Marcus knew it was a long shot. After all, Liberty had burned a few bridges in the past couple of weeks. But the clock was ticking. Without something big, Liberty would lose its momentum and its chance to scale. They had to act fast. The decision was made. Marcus would take a calculated risk and reach out to some smaller, independent firms with a reputation for supporting disruptive startups. They weren't the household names or corporate giants that most investors looked for, but they might be the right fit for Liberty's values. He picked up the phone and dialed. It wasn't until late afternoon when Marcus received a call from a well-known figure in the startup world, Emily Ford, a venture capitalist with a history of backing groundbreaking tech firms. "Marcus," Emily said, her voice smooth but with a touch of steel, "I've been following Liberty's journey. You're making waves and I like what I see. I know you've had some bumps in the road with your investors, but I think this could be an opportunity for us to work together." Marcus leaned forward in his chair. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to back you, Marcus. I'm offering you an investment that will allow you to stay independent and move forward with your vision. I've got the resources to get you to the next level, but I need a clear understanding of where you're going and how quickly you can get there. If you're ready to scale, I'm ready to help." The next few days were filled with late night meetings, strategy calls, and contract negotiations. Emily's offer was compelling. She wasn't looking for a quick return. She saw the long-term potential in Liberty's disruptive model. The deal they were crafting would give Liberty the financial cushion it needed without losing control to a larger corporate entity. But there was a catch. "You know, Marcus," Emily said during one of their calls, "I'm on board, but I need you to be all in, no more hesitation. If you're going to go big, you have to make that decision now. There are other opportunities I'm considering. If I'm going to support Liberty, you need to show me that you're committed to the vision without turning back." Marcus sat back in his chair, his fingers tapping nervously on the desk. This was it, the moment of truth. He couldn't afford to lose this chance. "I'm in," Marcus said, his voice steady but resolute. "Let's do it." With the deal in place, Liberty was set to receive the funds it needed to not only launch the new platform, but also to scale it at a level that could compete with the biggest players in the game. They had found a partner who understood their mission and wasn't just interested in short-term profits. Emily's involvement gave Liberty the stability it needed to push forward. But as Marcus looked over the final contracts, he knew the real work was just beginning. The next few months were filled with intense development, late nights, and strategic decisions. Liberty's new platform began to take shape, with features that would change the way people interacted with their finances. But the true challenge was in the execution, delivering on the promise they'd made to their community and proving that Liberty could deliver on its mission. But even with this new momentum, the road was far from easy. Triune Federal, watching from the sidelines, made a new move, opening a rival platform that promised to be Liberty's biggest competition yet. The reckoning was far from over. Liberty had gained a foothold, but Marcus knew that the real battle was still ahead. Marcus stood in front of the conference room, the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. The entire team was present, their eyes fixed on him. The silence was deafening, each person aware of what was coming next. The news was out. Triune Federal had launched a competing platform, one that threatened to overshadow everything Liberty had worked for. He could feel the tension in the air, the uncertainty about what this meant for their future. For the last few months, things had been on the up and up. They had their funding secured. The platform was nearing completion, and their loyal customers were ready for the revolution they had promised. But now Triune, with their vast resources and established reputation, had thrown a wrench into the works. "All right, here's the deal," Marcus began, trying to keep his voice calm, though inside, his mind was racing. "Triune has dropped their new platform, and from what we've seen, they've spared no expense. They're promising everything we've been working toward. And more. We've got a serious battle ahead of us." Lena, who had been working tirelessly to help refine Liberty's platform, spoke up first. "We knew this was coming. Triune has always been eyeing us. They have the resources, the name recognition, and they can pull from a larger customer base. We need to figure out what sets us apart and leverage that advantage, quickly." Marcus nodded. "Exactly. They've got the muscle, but we've got the heart. What we need is a message, something that resonates with our community and shows them why Liberty is still the right choice, even with this new competitor. Over the next few days, the team dove into market analysis, comparing Triune's features with Liberty's. It quickly became clear that while Triune had a shiny, polished platform with plenty of bells and whistles, Liberty's core strength still lay in its personal touch. Liberty's customers were more than just account holders. They were part of a movement, a community committed to financial equality, education, and empowerment. Triune, on the other hand, was more about speed and convenience. "We need to emphasize the difference," Tara said, as she scrolled through Triune's feature list. "They're going for volume, but we're about value. They're offering all these flashy features, but they don't have the emotional connection we do. We need to make that connection even stronger." Marcus smiled slightly. "That's the key. We're not just selling financial services. We're selling a vision. Liberty isn't just another bank. It's the bank for people who care about more than just profit." With that in mind, the team set to work. They started refining their messaging, emphasizing Liberty's commitment to its core values: transparency, community, and empowering underserved populations. They launched a targeted ad campaign focusing on Liberty's unique mission, using testimonials from satisfied customers who had benefited from Liberty's community-focused approach. They worked with social media influencers who shared their vision of a better, more inclusive financial future. The campaign was bold, but it was necessary. Liberty's survival now depended not just on offering competitive features, but on reaffirming the trust they had built with their loyal customers. As the weeks went by, it became evident that the rivalry between Liberty and Triune was intensifying. Triune's advertising blitz was everywhere, with sleek TV ads and online promotions promising unbeatable convenience and innovation. They had the resources to flood the market. But despite their impressive tactics, they were missing one thing: a true emotional connection with their audience. Liberty's strategy, on the other hand, was deliberate. Every piece of content was crafted to remind customers why they'd chosen Liberty in the first place, because Liberty cared about them, not just their wallets. Slowly but surely, the loyal base began to grow, and existing customers spread the word. But just when Marcus thought they were making progress, the battle escalated in a way he hadn't anticipated. One afternoon, as Marcus was meeting with the leadership team in the office, a sudden, unexpected email popped up on his screen. It was from Victor Graham, the billionaire investor who had tried to warn him about staying independent. The subject line simply read, "Offer to acquire Liberty." Marcus frowned, opening the email quickly. "Marcus, I've been watching Liberty's progress closely, and while I didn't agree with your decision to reject our initial offer, I'll admit you've built something worth taking seriously. I'd like to make an offer to acquire Liberty Bank at a premium. With our resources and infrastructure, we can expand Liberty's reach exponentially. Let me know if you're interested." Victor Graham Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment. The offer was tempting, very tempting. He could sell Liberty, secure the future of his employees, and avoid the mounting pressure of competition from Triune. But he knew what that would mean. It would mean handing over control of his vision. Liberty would no longer be his. He leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Just as he was about to respond, Lena walked in, a concerned look on her face. "Marcus, I think we need to talk." Marcus gestured for her to sit. "What's going on?" "I've been doing some digging into Triune's new platform," Lena said, her tone serious, "and I think we might have a bigger issue than we initially realized. I've heard whispers that they're preparing to undercut us on pricing and offer exclusive perks to their existing customers. If they manage to get those people to switch, we could be in trouble. They're using aggressive tactics." Marcus clenched his jaw. The gloves were off. Triune wasn't going to play fair. They were going to fight dirty. And Marcus knew that they had to be ready for whatever came next. Over the next few days, the tension grew as both companies fought tooth and nail for market share. Triune's relentless push to dominate had the potential to disrupt everything they'd worked for. But Liberty wasn't backing down. They doubled down on their messaging, refining their user experience and offering unique benefits to customers who committed to the bank. And then, in a dramatic turn, something unexpected happened. A massive data breach occurred at Triune Federal. Sensitive customer information was exposed, causing an immediate public outcry. The media pounced, and the trust Triune had so carefully built began to crumble. Liberty, on the other hand, had been transparent with its customers about its security measures. It became clear that, while Triune was all about profit, Liberty had earned the trust of its customers through consistent integrity. That was when the tide began to shift. Triune's rival platform was faltering. Customers were leaving, many of them finding refuge in Liberty's embrace. Marcus and his team seized the opportunity, continuing their aggressive marketing campaign and highlighting the stark contrast between their commitment to security and the issues plaguing Triune. Liberty had survived the first wave of the rivalry, but Marcus knew this was just the beginning. Triune wouldn't go down without a fight. The air in Liberty's headquarters was thick with tension. Marcus paced back and forth in his office, staring at his phone. The news that had just hit his inbox was nothing short of a bombshell. Triune Federal had just announced an exclusive partnership with Tri-State Corp, one of the largest and most influential corporations in the country. The deal promised to give Triune access to millions of new customers, corporate employees who would now be automatically enrolled in Triune's banking system, all but guaranteeing them a massive market share. The move was a game changer. Marcus slammed his fist on the desk. "They're trying to box us out. This is their nuclear option." Lena stood in the doorway, looking grim. "I saw the announcement. This changes everything. If they lock down Tri-State's employees, it'll be almost impossible for us to compete. They've got unfathomable resources behind them now." "Exactly," Marcus said, rubbing his eyes. "They're using brute force. This is a strategic play to eliminate us before we get too big." The team had been anticipating Triune's next move, but this was far beyond anything they had expected. Triune wasn't just competing, they were trying to wipe Liberty off the... By later that day, Marcus called an emergency meeting with the leadership team to discuss their next steps. They gathered around the large conference table, the mood heavier than ever before. Tara was the first to speak. "This is huge. We don't have access to that kind of corporate client base, and we sure as hell can't compete with their financial muscle. The market is going to be flooded with Triune-branded accounts. We could lose a lot of our loyal customers. I don't want to focus on losing," Marcus replied, his voice unwavering. "I want us to think about how we can win even in this impossible situation." Dion leaned forward, his fingers tapping the table. "We need a counterattack. We can't sit back and wait for them to steamroll us. If they're going after corporate clients, then maybe it's time we double down on small businesses. The entrepreneurs, the innovators, the people who don't have a voice with the big banks. We know they trust us. Now we need to own that space." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "I like that. We can't outmuscle them, but we can outsmart them. Triune's move is focused on the corporate world, but there are plenty of small businesses out there looking for a bank that actually cares about them." Lena spoke up next. "We've been talking about community and financial literacy from the beginning. What if we pivot more aggressively toward financial education for small business owners? We can hold free workshops, partner with local influencers in the business community, and really focus on building relationships instead of just trying to win over accounts." Marcus smiled, feeling the fire of determination return. "Yes, that's our angle. While they try to dominate big business, we'll focus on empowering the small businesses and entrepreneurs who want to build something more personal." The team immediately set to work. They launched an aggressive new marketing campaign, this time aimed directly at small business owners. Financial literacy workshops were set up in cities across the country, offering free consultations for entrepreneurs who needed guidance on managing their business finances. Liberty also introduced a new line of small business services, including affordable loans, customized payment solutions, and business credit building tools that were designed specifically to help small businesses grow. At the same time, Liberty's social media presence was revitalized, with live Q&A sessions hosted by Marcus himself, where he answered questions from small business owners and financial novices. The goal was clear: build a loyal community that saw Liberty as more than just a bank, but a trusted partner in their entrepreneurial journey. Meanwhile, Triune Federal continued to dominate the headlines. The partnership with Tri-State was massive. Triune's ads seemed to be everywhere, on television, social media, and in every major business magazine. They were offering exclusive perks to Tri-State employees, with promises of no-fee checking accounts, high-yield savings plans, and employee-only financial benefits. Triune was pushing hard to consolidate power and lock in customers before Liberty had a chance to strike back. One afternoon, Marcus received an unexpected call. It was from Emily Ford, the venture capitalist who had helped Liberty secure funding earlier in the year. She had been monitoring the situation closely, and she had an idea that could turn the tide in Liberty's favor. "Marcus, I've been thinking about the Triune move," Emily said, her voice calm but determined. "I know your focus is on small businesses, and I think you're on the right track. But I've got something that could help you leverage that focus even more. Something that will give Liberty a distinct edge in this battle." "Go on," Marcus replied, his interest piqued. "Let's talk about impact investing," Emily suggested. "There's a growing trend where investors are looking for banks that invest in social good, sustainability, and positive change. Triune might have the resources, but they're not exactly known for their socially conscious approach. Liberty could position itself as the bank of impact, investing in businesses that do good for their communities. You can integrate this into your small business push." Marcus felt a spark of excitement. "You're talking about a new type of business partnership, one that not only focuses on profit but on purpose. We could attract not only small businesses but socially conscious investors and customers who want to see their money go to businesses that actually care about making a difference." "Exactly," Emily said. "You have the chance to create something that Triune can't replicate. While they're chasing corporate dollars, you can own the social enterprise space and provide businesses with the capital they need to make a real difference." That night, Marcus and his team worked late into the evening, crafting a new strategic vision for Liberty. They would now focus on businesses that prioritize social impact, sustainable companies, non-profits, and those who use their profits to make a difference in their communities. They launched the new initiative with a bold slogan, "Banking with a Purpose." Liberty would be the bank for entrepreneurs who cared about more than just the bottom line. It was a perfect way to differentiate themselves from Triune's corporate-focused strategy. The next few weeks were crucial. Liberty's new message resonated strongly with both customers and investors. Small businesses flocked to Liberty, eager to partner with a bank that valued their vision and supported their growth in meaningful ways. And as word spread about Liberty's commitment to socially responsible investing, more customers switched over from Triune, drawn by the bank's unique mission. But just as Liberty seemed to be gaining momentum, Triune struck again. Triune launched a massive corporate employee referral program, offering Tri-State employees bonuses for referring others to the platform. It was a slick, well-organized move designed to keep the momentum going and deepen their ties with the corporate world. But Marcus wasn't worried. He knew what they had that Triune didn't, a community that believed in their mission. The tension was palpable at Liberty's headquarters. The recent weeks had been a whirlwind. Marcus had been fighting tooth and nail to keep Liberty's momentum going, but Triune Federal wasn't backing down. In fact, they were getting more aggressive with each passing day. Despite Liberty's successful shift to focusing on social impact and small businesses, Triune wasn't losing ground. They had launched an employee referral program that quickly amassed thousands of new customers. Their corporate ties were beginning to show serious returns, and they weren't showing any signs of slowing down. Marcus stood in front of the large windows of his office, watching the sun dip below the skyline. The city looked beautiful, but it felt far less serene than usual. Liberty's growth was real, but Triune's influence loomed larger than ever. Lena knocked and stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said, her voice low. He turned, nodding for her to continue. "I've been tracking Triune's moves. They're throwing everything at us: billboards, targeted social media ads, partnerships with major influencers. It's working, but there's more. Their referral program is expanding, and I'm hearing rumors they might try to acquire a competitor to bolster their position even further." Marcus exhaled sharply. They think they can bury us, don't they? Lena met his gaze. They've got the resources to do it, Marcus. But they don't have the heart. Not like we do. Our message is resonating with people, and we're starting to see a real difference in the smaller businesses we're partnering with. But Trioun, they're chasing the money, not the people. Marcus smiled, appreciating Lena's perspective. I know. That's what I keep telling myself every day. But what if they don't go away? What if they keep throwing punches and we can't? Keep up? Lena paused, then placed a hand on his shoulder. We don't have to keep up, Marcus. We just need to stay true to what we've always been. Liberty is not just about the money. It's about making a difference. Marcus took a deep breath, turning back to the window. He knew Lena was right. They couldn't compete with Trioun's sheer size and financial power, but they had something more. They had purpose, they had a community, and they had loyalty. It was time to double down on those strengths. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. His mind raced with ideas, scenarios, and potential moves to outmaneuver Trioun. He knew it was time for a bold, game-changing strategy, a turning point in the battle for Liberty's future. By morning, he had a plan. He called an all-hands-on-deck meeting with the leadership team. In the meeting room, the team gathered, their faces reflecting both anticipation and exhaustion. They had been through a lot in the past few months, but this meeting would define everything. All right, team, Marcus began, his voice steady. I've been thinking about how to really shift the tide. We've been reactive. We've been defending against Trioun's moves. But now it's time for us to take control. We're not going to try and match them dollar for dollar. We're going to outsmart them. Tara raised an eyebrow. Outsmart them how? We're going to partner with small businesses that don't just want financial services. They want advocacy. We're going to take social impact to the next level and partner with organizations and businesses that are making real, tangible change in their communities. We're going to make our bank synonymous with social good. And we're going to show Trioun and the world that Liberty isn't just a bank, it's a movement. Lena leaned in, intrigued. Are you saying we should focus more on activism? Take on projects that really change the world? Yes, but we can't just talk the talk. We have to walk the walk. Liberty has always been a place for the underdogs, the small businesses that don't have a voice in traditional banking. But now, we're going to become the champion for those businesses that are doing the hard work, those businesses that have real impact on the environment, on social justice, on sustainability. We need to show our customers that by choosing Liberty, they're not just getting a better bank, they're part of something bigger. The team exchanged looks, the idea settling in. Marcus had a point. Trioun might have the money and the connections, but Liberty had something else. They had a purpose, and it was time to make that the centerpiece of their brand. If we do this, we'll need to go all in, Lena said, leaning back in her chair. We'll need to partner with non-profits, impact investors, and socially conscious businesses to amplify our mission. The goal isn't just to get more clients, it's to change the culture of banking and the future of financial systems as a whole. Marcus nodded. Exactly. This isn't just about market share. This is about leadership. We'll build a platform that connects businesses, investors, and customers to make real impact happen. We'll create a network of changemakers and we'll make it clear that Liberty is the place where they can do the most good. The meeting was charged with energy, and the team began to take action immediately. They crafted a new marketing campaign that tied Liberty's core values directly into its products. They started partnerships with organizations that focused on financial education, sustainability, and social equality. Liberty's new slogan would be, "Your bank for a better tomorrow." As the weeks passed, the new campaign began to take off. Customers were drawn to the idea of banking with a purpose, and small businesses loved the idea of a bank that didn't just look at their bottom line, but was invested in their success and the community's well-being. Liberty Bank's message of empowerment and social impact resonated deeply with its growing customer base. However, as the campaign gained momentum, so did Trioun. They fought back with new advertising strategies, flaunting their referral bonuses and corporate partnerships even more aggressively. But Liberty was on a different track now. They weren't just playing the game, they were changing the rules. One evening, Marcus got a call from Emily Ford. "Marcus, I've been hearing about your new campaign. It's bold, and it's already making waves, but listen, Triune isn't going to just sit idly by. They're going to respond. And when they do, they're going to come at you harder than ever. Are you ready for that? The question hung in the air. Triune had money, resources, and power, but Liberty had something more, something that Marcus was beginning to believe in more and more each day: the people. They had loyal customers, a community, and the belief that they could do something bigger than just run a business. Liberty Bank had done it. The Banking with a Purpose campaign was taking the industry by storm. Small business owners, social enterprises, and customers who wanted more than just profits were flocking to Liberty, eager to support a bank that believed in more than just numbers. The message was loud and clear. Liberty was on a mission to change the future of banking, and it was a mission that had resonated deeply with the community. But with success came a new wave of challenges that Marcus hadn't anticipated. Marcus sat in his office late one night, looking over the latest numbers. Customer sign-ups were through the roof. Liberty's social impact initiatives were gaining traction. The media was starting to recognize them as more than just another upstart bank. They were pioneers. It felt like everything was moving in the right direction, and yet the weight of his decision to go all in on social good was starting to sink in. Lena knocked on the door and walked in, her face grim. "Marcus, we need to talk." He gestured for her to sit. "What's going on?" "It's about Triune," she said. "They've made their move. They're throwing down the gauntlet in a way we've never seen before. They've launched a massive campaign to discredit us. They're calling us out, questioning our credibility, and positioning themselves as the safe, stable choice." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. "I figured it was coming. They're using our social impact strategy against us, claiming that we're more focused on activism than on profitability." Lena nodded. "Exactly. They've even got ads running, saying that Liberty is a risky bet for investors, that you're more concerned about being the good guys than providing returns. And it's hitting harder than I thought. We're getting pushback from some of our institutional investors." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. He'd always known that pushing Liberty into the realm of social good would alienate some people, but he never imagined it would come with this much resistance. His bold vision was now under attack, and the reality of the risks he'd taken began to feel more tangible. "They're hitting us where it hurts," Marcus muttered. "We've always prided ourselves on being a bank for the people, but now it feels like the system is turning against us." Lena sat forward, her expression resolute. "We've been through tough spots before, Marcus. We can weather this storm, but we need to be strategic. We can't just keep pushing back. We need to show people that our message isn't just about profits. It's about creating a legacy. We can leverage our success and show that this isn't a short-term play." Marcus thought for a moment, his mind running through the possibilities. "We'll need to get ahead of this. We can't let them define our narrative. We'll double down on transparency, show investors and customers exactly where their money is going, the real-world impact we're having. If Triune wants to make us look like a risk, we'll show them we're making a difference," Lena agreed. "That's the right move, and we'll need to have a strong response to these attacks. We can't let them question our commitment to sustainability and social change without showing the value in it." A few days later, Marcus was standing in front of a crowd at the National Impact Conference, one of the largest gatherings of socially conscious business leaders and investors. He'd been invited to speak about Liberty's vision for the future, and he knew this was his chance to address the growing concerns about their credibility. The auditorium was filled with investors, business leaders, and media representatives. The crowd was buzzing with anticipation. As Marcus took the stage, he felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The recent media backlash had put Liberty on the defensive, and he knew this speech could either be a turning point or a disaster. He cleared his throat and began, his voice steady but impassioned. "We've all seen the power of business to change the world, but we've also seen the damage unchecked profit motives can cause. At Liberty, we believe in a new way of doing business, a way that doesn't just seek profits but also purpose. We believe that impact and profitability are not mutually exclusive. And that's why we've invested in businesses that are making a difference, because we know that our success can drive positive change in ways that traditional banking never could. He paused, scanning the room. But some people don't. Like that. They're afraid of change, and they'll tell you that a purpose-driven business is too risky. They'll try to convince you that profits should always come first, no matter the cost. But I'm here to tell you, we don't have to choose between doing good and doing well. We can do both. The room was silent. For a moment, Marcus wasn't sure if they were listening, or if they were just waiting for him to make his next move. We've built something special at Liberty. We've proven that a business can be profitable while also giving back. And the truth is, our success isn't just measured by numbers on a balance sheet. It's measured by the lives we've impacted, the businesses we've helped thrive, and the communities we've strengthened. The speech was a turning point for Liberty. In the following weeks, media coverage began to shift. The story wasn't just about a bank struggling to compete. It was about a bank changing the game. Investors started to take note, many of them seeing the potential in Liberty's model. Even as Triune continued its attacks, Liberty's transparency and commitment to real-world impact began to resonate with the broader public. But despite the positive momentum, the pressure was mounting. The pushback from investors and the growing concern about Liberty's long-term viability left Marcus feeling conflicted. He had made a bold decision, and while the results were beginning to show promise, there was a price to pay. That evening, as Marcus reviewed a pile of investor reports, he found a letter from one of Liberty's major institutional backers. The letter was polite but firm. They were reassessing their position in Liberty, citing concerns about the bank's emphasis on social impact over traditional profits. Marcus felt a sinking feeling in his chest. The price of success was becoming clearer now. It wasn't just the competition from Triune. It was the pushback from those who didn't believe in the new way of doing business. Success in his vision would come at a cost, and that cost was more than just financial. It was personal. He stood by the window looking out at the skyline, deep in thought. The weight of the decision was heavy. Was it worth it? To fight for a new kind of banking, to turn the industry on its head, to take this risk for something that felt like it could change the world? He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "I can't back down now." It had been a month since Marcus's speech at the National Impact Conference, and the landscape of Liberty Bank had changed dramatically. The initial surge of support from socially conscious businesses and customers had been a relief, but the battle wasn't over. Triune had not let up, and now their attacks were hitting closer to home. Marcus sat in his office, a pile of reports in front of him, but his focus was elsewhere. The pressure was mounting, and he could feel it in his bones. The recent letter from investors had sent shockwaves through the company, and the once smooth flow of operations now felt like a constant uphill battle. Lena walked in, her face as serious as ever. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. Marcus didn't look up from his desk. "I know. The investors, the attacks from Triune. Everything's been piling up, and I don't know how much longer we can keep this up." Lena sat across from him. "It's worse than that. I've had multiple investors come to me privately, asking if we're willing to change our approach. They're worried about our long-term viability. Some are even suggesting we scale back our social initiatives in favor of more traditional banking strategies. We're losing their confidence, Marcus." Marcus took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had known this day was coming. The risk had always been high. When he made the decision to go all in on social impact, he understood that it wasn't going to be easy. But seeing it all come to a head like this was still a gut punch. "You're telling me we can't continue the path we've chosen?" he asked, finally looking up. Lena hesitated before answering. "I'm not saying that exactly, but the question is, can we afford to keep going down this path without a clear financial win? Our investors are in it for the money, and they're not seeing enough returns right now." The words stung. Can we afford it? Marcus had asked himself that countless times in the past few weeks, but hearing Lena say it out loud felt like a cold slap. The long-term vision of Liberty Bank was never about just making profits. It was about creating a model that could change the game, prove that businesses could do well by doing good. But the financial reality of keeping up with Triune's crushing force was undeniable. "I can't believe we're even talking about backing down," Marcus said quietly. "I started Liberty to prove that we don't have to choose between making money and making a difference, but now it feels like we're being forced to choose." Lena's face softened, but her words were still firm. "I know, Marcus, but sometimes a fight isn't about winning all the battles. It's about knowing when to fight and when to regroup." Marcus stood up, walking to the window, staring out at the city below. The streets were bustling with life, the people going about their business, unaware of the quiet war being fought behind the walls of Liberty Bank. Triune's influence was pervasive. The bigger bank's financial muscle, its corporate connections, and its aggressive advertising campaigns were beginning to wear on him. They had more resources, more power, and they weren't afraid to use it. But what did Liberty have that Triune didn't? He turned back to Lena. "I can't let Triune win. I can't let them turn us into something we're not. They'll swallow up everything we've worked for." Lena met his gaze, her eyes filled with concern. "So what's the plan, Marcus? Are we sticking to our guns no matter what?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration rising. He didn't have an easy answer. He'd built Liberty on principles, on the belief that a bank could be a force for good. But the pressure was relentless and the cracks were starting to show. Could he really maintain that vision while keeping Liberty afloat? "I don't know," he said finally, his voice heavy. "But I can't give up on the dream, not now, we've come too far." But as the days passed, the situation continued to worsen. The attacks from Triune grew more sophisticated. They began running ads that specifically targeted Liberty's social impact model, mocking it as a pipe dream, and questioning whether customers were really getting the value they deserved. Their ads claimed that Liberty's focus on activism was putting the bank at risk, and urged customers to trust a more secure traditional banking institution. Liberty's customers were starting to feel the pressure. Some were questioning whether their deposits were truly safe in a bank that was so committed to social good. Others wondered if the high-profile partnerships with non-profits and social enterprises were distracting Liberty from core banking operations. The doubts were creeping in. It wasn't just customers who were feeling the strain. The board of directors had called for an emergency meeting. The tension was thick as Marcus stepped into the conference room. He was met with the cold eyes of several key board members, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and concern. "We've discussed this at length," said Robert Jenkins, one of the major investors. "The truth is, Liberty's model is not sustainable unless we pivot. We've been too reliant on a niche market that is volatile at best. You can't keep a business afloat with idealism alone." Marcus's heart sank. The reckoning had arrived. "I hear you, Robert," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the weight on his shoulders. "But if we abandon our principles now, what have we really built? Liberty has always been about doing things differently, about proving that you can make a difference while also being profitable. I'm not willing to throw that away just to please investors who don't share that vision." The room fell silent. The tension was unbearable. The stakes were higher than ever. "We understand your commitment, Marcus," said Sandra Lee, another board member, "but we need a real plan to weather this storm. If we don't see substantial growth in the next quarter, we may have no choice but to scale back our social initiatives." Marcus felt like he was standing at a crossroads, one path leading to the values that had driven Liberty from day one, and the other leading to a compromise that would preserve the bank's financial health but strip away everything it stood for. Just as he was about to respond, Lena walked in, her expression grim. She handed him a letter. "It's from Triune. They're offering to buy us out." The room gasped, but Marcus barely blinked. Triune was offering a generous price, enough to save Liberty's financial future, but at the cost of everything he'd fought for. He looked at the letter, then back at the board. "This is it, the price of success. Triune's trying to buy us out, and they'll offer a great deal of money, but they'll strip Liberty of its soul." The decision was clear now. The reckoning had come. Marcus had to choose whether to fight for Liberty's future, no matter the cost, or sell out and preserve the legacy he'd built, at the expense of the very values that made Liberty unique. The weight of the decision felt heavier than ever. Marcus sat in his office, the letter from Triune still lying on his desk. The offer was tempting, more money than Liberty could ever imagine, an end to the constant pressure, a chance to preserve everything he'd worked for. But accepting it would mean losing everything he believed in. Lena knocked on the door and entered, her face a mix of concern and resolve. "Marcus, I've been talking to some of the board members, and they're seriously considering Triune's offer. They say we're at a crossroads, and this may be the only way to save Liberty financially." Marcus glanced at the letter again, his mind clouded with uncertainty. The offer was generous, enough to take Liberty out of the red and secure its future for years to come. But at what cost? He stood up and walked to the window, staring out over the skyline. The city was alive with movement, a reflection of the restlessness that had taken over his mind. He had worked so hard to build Liberty into something that stood for more than just profits. It was supposed to be a symbol of what business could be. Profitable, yes, but with a higher purpose. Could he really walk away from that? Lena stepped closer, sensing his internal struggle. "Marcus, I know how much this means to you, but we need to be pragmatic. Triune is offering us a chance to move forward without the constant stress, without the pressure from investors and competitors. We can rebuild from there, maybe even come back stronger." Marcus's jaw tightened. Rebuild? Or just build something that wasn't Liberty at all? He turned to face her. "I didn't start this to be just another bank. I didn't build Liberty for the sake of comfort or easy profits. I built it to show that we don't have to choose between making money and doing good. If we sell to Triune, we lose that, and I can't live with that." Lena took a deep breath, her eyes searching his face. "But the alternative is that we keep fighting, and we might lose everything. You know that, right? We might end up bankrupt, with nothing left. We can't keep going like this forever." The reality of what she said hit him hard. The struggle had drained Liberty's resources. The attacks from Triune, the negative media coverage, the skepticism from investors, it had taken its toll. The company was running on fumes. Every day was a fight to stay afloat, and Marcus wasn't sure how much longer they could keep going. "I know," he said softly. "I know we can't keep fighting forever. But if I sell now, it's over. Everything we've built, everything we've stood for, gone. And I can't bear that thought." Lena's voice softened, almost like a whisper. "You don't have to bear it alone, Marcus. I've been with you since the beginning. I believe in what Liberty stands for, but I also know how hard this has been on you. No one can carry this weight forever." Marcus's heart felt heavy. Lena had been his closest ally throughout this entire journey. She had always believed in him, in Liberty, in the dream of changing banking. And now she was asking him to consider something he couldn't even imagine: letting go. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. Marcus hesitated, then opened it. "We need to talk. It's time to face the music. Triune CEO." Marcus blinked in disbelief. The CEO of Triune was reaching out directly? After all the public attacks, all the tension, why would they want to talk? Now? Lena raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "It's from Victor Kane, the CEO of Triune," Marcus said, shaking his head. "He wants to meet. I'm assuming he thinks now is the time to make his pitch in person." Lena's gaze sharpened. "I think you should meet with him. You need to hear what he has to say one last time. Maybe there's more to this offer than we know." Marcus didn't respond immediately. The idea of sitting face to face with the enemy felt like the ultimate test of his resolve. But maybe Lena was right. Maybe it was time to hear him out, understand the full picture before making the final decision. Later that afternoon, Marcus arrived at the sleek glass tower of Triune's headquarters. The building stood in stark contrast to the modest Liberty offices. Triune had always been about polished perfection, its brand, its image, everything, and Marcus had always rejected that for something more human, more relatable. But now, as he stood at the entrance, he couldn't help but wonder if maybe there was more to Triune than he had been willing to acknowledge. Victor Kane was waiting in his office, a confident smile on his face. He rose as Marcus entered, offering a handshake. "Marcus, good to finally meet you in person. I've heard a lot about Liberty. You've done impressive things." Marcus returned the handshake, trying to mask the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. "Thanks, Victor. Let's get to it. What do you really want?" Victor gestured to the seat across from him. Please have a seat. We both know what's at stake here. Triune is offering a partnership, a way to combine our strengths. You've got the vision, Marcus. I respect that. But we also have the resources and the reach to amplify what Liberty is doing. Think of the impact we could have together. Marcus sat, arms crossed, sizing up Victor. He'd heard all the pitches before, the promises of a bigger platform, more resources, and a chance to expand Liberty's mission. But those words felt hollow. What's the catch? Marcus asked bluntly. Victor leaned forward, his tone turning more serious. No catch. We'd allow Liberty to continue with its social initiatives, but with the financial backing of Triune, you'd have everything you need to continue growing, without the constant stress of the investor pressure you're facing now. In return, we'd need some control over the future direction of the bank, more oversight, more integration with our operations. Marcus's heart sank. This wasn't just an offer of financial support. This was about taking over Liberty, transforming it into another Triune subsidiary under their thumb. I built Liberty to be independent, to stand for something that Triune never could. You're asking me to sell out my vision, and I won't do that. Victor didn't flinch. I think you're underestimating what we can accomplish together, Marcus. You'd still have a say, still be the face of Liberty, but we'd bring in the stability you need. This could be the best of both worlds. Marcus's mind was racing. It was everything he feared. It was the end of Liberty as he knew it. He had to make the hardest choice of his life. Was it time to compromise for the sake of the bank's survival, or was it worth losing everything to hold on to the dream? The ink had barely dried on the contract before Marcus began to feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He had agreed to Triune's terms, the deal that would secure Liberty's financial future, but, in the process, change its soul forever. The partnership meant the end of the bank as he had envisioned it, the independent, socially conscious institution that had sought to redefine what banking could be. It had been a week since the deal was signed, and Marcus felt like he was walking through a fog. Liberty's board had celebrated the merger with Triune, praising the financial stability it promised. But as Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the contracts, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had betrayed everything he had worked for. He thought about the phone call he had with Lena after the decision was finalized. She had been understanding, but her voice had held an unmistakable sadness. "Marcus, I trust you," she had said, "but just remember that nothing comes without a cost. We've sacrificed a part of what Liberty was to stay alive. Just don't. Forget why we started this in the first place." Now, as he walked through the Liberty headquarters, the changes were already beginning to feel real. The once vibrant and energetic atmosphere had been replaced with a sense of hesitation, the air thick with uncertainty. The walls, once filled with posters of social campaigns and community-driven initiatives, now had corporate branding from Triune, a cold, impersonal logo that seemed to suck the life out of the place. "Morning, Marcus," a voice called out. It was Ryan, a young banker who had been with Liberty for several years. His voice sounded distant, like he was no longer sure where he stood in all of this. "Morning, Ryan," Marcus replied, but his voice lacked the usual warmth. He was already struggling to adjust to the changes in the air. As Marcus walked to his office, he saw employees whispering among themselves, casting uncertain glances his way. They had all known that the deal was coming. But now that it had been finalized, the reality of what had been lost was setting in. Liberty Bank was no longer just about empowering the marginalized or giving back to communities. It was now just another subsidiary of a massive corporation. The core values that had once defined the institution were becoming more and more distant as Triune's interests began to creep in. Sitting at his desk, Marcus glanced at the stacks of papers, the financial reports, the projections, all drenched in the language of corporate growth. They all now bore Triune's seal. As he flipped through the documents, he saw the changes that were already happening behind the scenes. There were cuts being made to the social programs Liberty had championed. The community outreach initiatives were being scaled back, and the biggest blow, the team that had fought alongside Marcus to reshape the financial system, was beginning to feel the pressure to conform to the new corporate direction. Marcus wasn't sure how long they could hold on to their old ideals in this new, colder reality. A knock on the door brought him back to the present. It was Lena, and her face was a picture of concern. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. He stood up, pushing the papers aside. "What's going on, Lena?" she sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's the investors. They're demanding more changes. The commitment to social good is already being watered down, and the board wants more aggressive cost-cutting. We're no longer a social bank, we're just another business now, and I'm afraid we're losing our identity." Marcus's stomach churned. He had known this was coming. The more they bowed to Triune's demands, the further they would drift from the bank they had built. But hearing it out loud from Lena, someone who had been with him from the very start, felt like a punch to the gut. "I don't know what to say," he muttered, pacing back and forth in the small office. "This was supposed to be the best of both worlds, Lena. We were supposed to keep fighting, keep building, but now it feels like we've sold out everything we stood for." Lena looked at him with sympathy in her eyes. "Marcus, I know you didn't want this. I know you wanted to change the world. But there's a hard truth here. Triune doesn't want to change the world. They want to profit, and we're just another cog in their machine. And the more we try to hold on to the old liberty, the more it feels like we're fighting a losing battle." Marcus's head was spinning. The deal with Triune had promised stability, growth, but it was coming at a steep price. He had sacrificed so much of what made liberty different. And now, standing in the midst of it all, it felt like he had lost control. "We need to talk to the team," Marcus said, finally finding his voice. "We can't keep pretending like this is the best decision if it's only going to push us further away from our mission." Later that afternoon, Marcus gathered the leadership team in a conference room. The energy was tense, as everyone had a sense of the direction they were headed. Triune's influence was becoming more and more obvious with each passing day. As the team settled in, Marcus took a deep breath. "I know things have been difficult. I know that some of you feel like we're losing our way, but this decision to partner with Triune was made to ensure Liberty's survival. I made it because I thought it was the only way to keep us from failing, but I also know that it's costing us something irreplaceable. Our soul, our mission." There was silence in the room, and Marcus could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on everyone. Maya, one of the senior executives, spoke up. "Marcus, you're right. The merger was supposed to keep us afloat, but I'm starting to feel like we're becoming something we never set out to be. We're not Liberty anymore. We're just another corporate entity, and I can't help but wonder, was it worth it?" Marcus felt a pang of guilt. He had always prided himself on standing firm, on fighting for the values that Liberty had built its foundation on. But now, he wasn't sure anymore. The sense of compromise had crept into every corner of his life. "Maybe it wasn't worth," Marcus said quietly. "But we don't have the luxury of going back now. We have to figure out how to make this work, without losing ourselves entirely." The room fell silent once again. The weight of what had been lost was palpable. But the battle wasn't over yet. They had to find a way to move forward, to hold on to whatever remnants of Liberty's original vision were still salvageable. Marcus glanced around the room. The team was tired, but there was still a spark in their eyes. They hadn't given up yet. Maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for Liberty. But it would take everything they had to reclaim what had been lost and fight for the soul of the bank in a world that seemed increasingly indifferent to their ideals. As the meeting ended, Marcus walked back to his office, the weight of the decision still heavy on his shoulders. He had hoped for a different outcome, but now more than ever he knew that the real fight was just beginning. The sun was just beginning to set as Marcus stood at the top floor of Liberty's headquarters, gazing out at the skyline. It had been a long, exhausting road, one filled with difficult decisions and moments of doubt, but as he stood there, he realized something he hadn't fully understood until now. He wasn't done yet. There was still time to make a difference. Last few weeks had been a blur of corporate strategy sessions, board meetings, and endless discussions with Triune. Liberty was no longer the independent, rebellious institution it had once been. It had become a shadow of itself, trying to maintain its ideals while operating under the control of a massive corporation. The employees were disillusioned, the public was growing skeptical, and Marcus himself felt like he was losing the very essence of what had driven him to start Liberty in the first place. But then, something had clicked. Something deep inside him had told him that it wasn't too late. They could still reclaim Liberty. They could still fight for the soul of the bank, even if it meant going against everything Triune expected of them. Lena entered the room, her presence a quiet reassurance. She stepped up beside Marcus, joining him in his quiet moment of reflection. "I've been talking to some of the team," Lena said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We all know the compromises we've made, but we also know that if we don't act soon, it will be over. Triune has already started pushing for full control, and soon we won't have the power to fight back." Marcus nodded, his eyes still focused on the city below. "I know, but I'm not ready to give up on what we built here. Liberty isn't just a bank, it's a movement, and I'm not about to let that die." Lena's gaze softened as she watched him. "So, what's the plan? Do you really think we can turn this around?" A determined smile tugged at Marcus's lips. "We're going to fight, not just for Liberty's survival, but for its soul. We've been playing by Triune's rules for too long, and look where that's gotten us. Lost, confused, and disconnected from everything we once stood for. Now it's time to take control of our own fate." He turned to face her fully, his resolve clear. "We can do this. We don't need Triune's resources to succeed. We need our people, our vision, and our integrity. If we can rally the right support, I believe we can reclaim what's ours and show the world that there's another way, a way that's about more than just profits." Lena's eyes lit up with a renewed sense of purpose. "I'm with you. I'll stand by your side, Marcus. We've come this far and I believe we can make it work. But we'll need the team's support, and we'll need to inspire them to fight for what we once believed in." Marcus nodded. "It won't be easy, but nothing worth fighting forever is. We've got one last shot and we have to make it count." Later that afternoon, Marcus and Lena called a meeting with the leadership team. They knew this was the moment. There was no going back. As everyone gathered in the conference room, Marcus could feel the tension in the air. The team was split. Some still clung to the hope that the partnership with Triune would work, while others had begun to question whether Liberty had already lost its way. But this meeting wasn't about trying to convince everyone. It was about showing them that there was still a chance to turn things around. "I know that many of you are feeling conflicted," Marcus began, his voice steady but passionate. "The decision to partner with Triune has been a difficult one, and it's changed everything we knew about Liberty. But I'm here to tell you that we still have a choice. We can still take back control of our bank, our mission, and our future. It's not too late." The room was silent as everyone listened, eyes fixed on Marcus. "We've built something incredible here," he continued. "We've made a difference in people's lives, but we've gotten lost in the corporate grind. We've allowed Triune's money to dictate our values, and it's time we remind ourselves of why we started this in the first place." A few nods of agreement began to spread around the room. There was a palpable shift in the energy. Marcus went on, "We're going to build a new future, one that isn't controlled by outside forces. We'll go public, we'll crowdfund to raise the capital we need, and we'll let our customers and our community become our strongest supporters. We will prove that it's possible to succeed without compromising our principles." Lena stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence. "I know this sounds like a risk, but I truly believe in this. We don't need Triune to survive. We need our people and we need each other. It's time for us to make a stand." The room buzzed with energy now. Conversations began to spark, with team members offering ideas and suggestions. Some were skeptical, but others saw the spark of hope in Marcus's eyes and Lena's determination. There was a collective sense that this could be their last chance, their last shot at building something meaningful again. Marcus's heart swelled with pride as he looked around the room. This was the team that had stood by him through thick and thin. They weren't just employees, they were partners in a cause, and together they would reclaim the soul of Liberty. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of action. Marcus and his team started by organizing a massive public campaign, Liberty's Rebirth. They launched a crowdfunding initiative aimed at raising capital from the community that had supported them from the start. They reached out to activists, entrepreneurs, and customers who believed in their mission and invited them to join the movement. The response was overwhelming. People were hungry for change, hungry for something different in a world where corporate greed had too long taken the lead. Liberty's message spread like wildfire, and soon they were attracting attention from all corners of the financial world. Triune, watching from the sidelines, was not happy. They had underestimated the power of Liberty's grassroots support and the sheer determination of Marcus and his team. But it was too late. The momentum had already shifted. 1 month later, Marcus stood in front of a crowd at Liberty's annual gala. The room was full of familiar faces, customers, investors, and employees, all there to celebrate what they had accomplished. He took the stage, his voice steady and confident. "This is a new beginning. Liberty is no longer just a bank. We are a movement. We have reclaimed our purpose and our values. We've shown the world that there is a better way to do business, a way that puts people over profits and integrity over compromise. We've proved that it's possible to succeed without losing sight of what matters." The room erupted in applause. Marcus could feel the energy in the air, a sense of renewal and hope that hadn't been there before. Liberty had risen from the ashes of compromise, stronger and more committed than ever. As the night came to a close, Marcus stood at the back of the room, watching the people who had made this possible. It had been a long journey, filled with difficult choices and sacrifices, but it had all led to this moment, the dawn of something new. Liberty was back,